that we're doing this then.
Oh, yeah, we didn't do the order. Well, we're just going to start it. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and variations thereof. Welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. Today, most of us have been drinking, and it's going to be obvious. Today, we're talking about Sithis, because why not? Sithis and the Dark Brotherhood, and probably Sheogorath and some other people. My name is Chris Nelson, but everybody calls me Rotten Deadite. And who wants to go next?
I'm Chris Franson, also known as Mojo.
I'm Alex Payne. I go by Merlin.
I am Putnam. That's my.
I'm Joe. Oh, that's Putnam. Still sorry. Fuck. I'm Joe. I'm also Heroic, and I'm drinking. Oh, fuck that.
I'm Nathan, and I'm also known as Mr. Flippers.
My name's Luther, also known as Darcius.
And is that everybody? I think that's everybody.
Nope. I'm Corey.
Oh, hi,
I have
Corey.
a bunch of names, but I'm Corey. Hi.
Okay. Putnam went. Okay, good. You switch in and out of mute like really, really quickly, so it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, I know. We're like ultra professional here. It's called a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. Not casual as in it's casual lore. Casual as in we don't really give a bunch of a rat's ass. Hey.
Yeah, fair play.
Sithis. Okay. The start of all true houses. Sithis is considered to be the soul of Padme, which is to say that Sithis is the Padmeric. A subgradient of Padme, but is also closely. I think it's at the same subgradiency level as. Help me out here, Ariel.
Anuiel.
Anuiel. Thank you. I knew I got that wrong. Okay.
Which is to say, it's nothing but more so than anything else that isn't.
Right.
So,
I like that. That's a good way to put that. Yeah. Okay. So what does... Okay, so now the first thing I want to get out of the way is something that is probably going to solve a lot of problems when people think about Sithis. They get very confused because there's a lot of seemingly conflicting information. The fact of the matter is, the brutal truth of it is that what Sithis is or who Sithis is varies depending on who's writing it.
Sithis is just math, bro.
Yep. Yeah, it's just math.
Yeah.
Could you explain that, Cody, please?
I thought that was the point of this whole exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's So during this podcast, we're going to talk about Sithis in ways that seem to be completely different. Which is just kind of how it goes. They haven't really nailed down the Sithis myth at Bethesda yet. Although, if you go by the last two games, I guess we could probably safely agree that Sithis is kind of like a sort of a death-centric sort of devil character, kind of.
As worshipped by the Dark Brotherhood.
Do we really want to?
Yeah. Well, Kirkbride says that when he was writing Sithis, he considered Sithis to be the embodiment of misanthropic emotion. Misanthropy.
I would like to talk about, I would like to talk about like what Sithis is to us, but I think right now we should just go into what others believe Sithis is. So right now the Sithis is the void. It is death, or at least that's what you're talking about with the Skyrim.
Right.
Concept. Yeah.
A sort of an absence of everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And to fill that and to match that void, the Dark Brotherhood, who claim to worship Sithis or the Night Mother, or maybe both, or maybe they're both the same thing, say that that killing people on contract is how they spread the will of Sithis, if nothingness has a will, which I always thought was an interesting contradiction. But what I would like to mention is that the Dark Brotherhood does not directly go against the concept, that Kirkbride's concept of Sithis, which is that by going out and allowing people to hire contract killers that always succeed in almost supernatural, regularity, they are in fact encouraging people to hate each other, to cluster and avoid culture or the public in general. So the two don't necessarily go against each other at that point. But the more you talk to people in the Dark Brotherhood, and the more you read Dark Brotherhood material in other games that have happened ever since Morrowind, it seems like that that kind of starts to fall to the wayside a little bit.
Well, I think it's very telling that in all the games, wherever the Dark Brotherhood is involved, they always wind up killing each other by the end of it.
Yeah, that can't be a
The
coincidence.
violence always turns inward.
If I may, according to the logs from MK's prolific IRC chats a year and a change ago, according to actually you, Rotten Deadite, Sithis is MK's quote is it's the complete and utter misanthropy, and it's the start of all houses because it makes men divide from each other, and the Dark Brotherhood fits in by dividing men from themselves with bladed weapons and death and all that. So it's almost sort of like the Dark Brotherhood is a really creepy church in that while they're still doing the spiritual work for which they were founded, the set of sacrosanct rituals they perform has morphed into its own thing that isn't really at all related to what they started out to do. So the purpose is still there, it's just their individual actions and interpretations of it are kind of skewed and have been taken over by a papal figure, the Night Mother, rather than the actual spiritual figure.
So, well then, what did the Dark Brotherhood start off to do, then?
I don't remember the history that well, but weren't they just the Morag Tong outside of Morrowind?
They were spun off the Morag Tong after they assassinated the Akaviri potentate.
I kind of feel like
Go, Nathan.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the Dark Brotherhood is sort of like the natural progression of the Morag Tong that the Morag Tong wouldn't allow themselves to get to because they operate to keep Morrowind in a way that it won't. The great houses won't be at open war, so the country will still be okay relatively. And the Dark Brotherhood they just take contracts because they take them, and it's accessible to anyone for any reason. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
Yeah.
I would say
making it more accessible.
Expanding on that, the Dark Brotherhood is very much a cult-like organization of Sithis worshippers and their Night Mother or Mathala or whatever you want to get into with that's a whole other tinfoil hat. But whereas the Morag Tong is very businesslike when you're dealing with them.
That is true, yeah. They have
very
legal
much-
documentation and everything, yeah.
We have a job to do, let's do it, and it's all sanctioned by the government, and where it seems like the Dark Brotherhood is a more extremist religious sect almost.
Almost a conservative Morag Tong, if you would.
Yeah.
Well, for those
you
who
got
play
something?
DSL,
If I may, like, not to keep with the Catholic metaphors, but full disclosure, I am Catholic, so I know this pretty well. It seems a lot like the Morag Tong are sort of a monastic order in that they do the work they're supposed to just for its own sake, and they're following closer to the spirit of it, whereas the Dark Brotherhood are basically selling indulgences, and if you need something done that they provide, it's yours for money. It's not a spiritual thing anymore, it's a business contract that's masked in spirituality, whereas the Morag Tong seems to be more legitimately defined and institutionalized, but they're not as... They're still following the strictures of the religion as well as the individual auspices of like their actions. So
sure, pretty good.
Mind if we jump out and do wild theory time just for a second?
Well, can I do an ESO question that's like directly related to that first? Because I haven't played ESO and I'm wondering if something's in it regarding the shadow skills and how the Argonian assassin order basically does Sithis stuff. Like, are they in that at all? Are they mentioned?
Yeah, they are.
Does that continue with the evolution of religion line that we're kind of chasing right now?
Definitely, there's definitely a strong connection drawn between the Argonians and Sithis all throughout ESO. And I believe the shadow skills appear at during one of the quests directly.
Yeah, they do.
The whole cadre of them.
In several.
I can't find anything on USP about it.
Yeah, how does ESO treat shadow scales, by the way? Because I know there is that whole deal with the idea is meant to be every single Argonian born under the shadow is meant to be with them or something. But I don't know if ESO handles it that way, which is a way that I know a lot of people don't like.
You meet a whole gaggle of them, and they ruin some shit.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Pretty concise.
Essentially, they're like brought up together as egg siblings, and they're kind of like the special forces of whatever central government is controlling the Argonians at this time in the Pact.
Okay.
So they're kind of.
I mean more in terms of like evolution of religion, because we're talking about the Morag Tong, like, and how that evolved into the Dark Brotherhood by like differing interpretations of the religion over time and different interpretations of how to worship Sithis over time, etc., etc. Like, I'm wondering if the shadow scales sort of like continue along in that line and have some way of interpreting the being or non-being of Sithis and how they send a tribute to the Dark Brotherhood by the time of Oblivion.
Personally, like, because of the hist being from the previous stream and having known Pat Home and Anu from that one, I've actually always sort of assumed that the shadow scales know the Pat Home prior to us, basically. So, like, he's a backstabbing, violent person, and so the shadow scales do similar things. And then, so they get that information from the hist, so they're not worshipping so much Sithis as old Pat Home and following in his footsteps. And then, just in the little Mundriel details, they wind up working with the Dark Brotherhood. Just it's more of a their interests align, and as part of the whole telescoping Pat Home thing, whereas there's like their individual interpretations are different because they're actually on an entirely different idea of what Pat Home and if there is a Sithis in the 12 worlds might be.
Mind if I bring up the Vivec theory between the Morag Tong and Dark Brotherhood?
The Night Mother.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't remember who originally. I don't remember who originally stated it, but it was.
I'll take credit for that.
Okay.
I don't know if it was me, but I'll say it was me.
Okay, but the point is that it's so good it can't be lore at this point. Essentially, when Vivec came to godhood, he needed the Morag Tong. He needed the Morag Tong, and they were loyal to Mephala, so he made his own Morag Tong, where he's Sithis, and the Night Mother is.
I thought he was the Night Mother.
Yeah.
No, there was the like 100 hands and like 100 murderous sons or whatever thing.
So I want to say Sermon 22, but I'm not sure.
Look it up.
And then like apparently gave him the Sithis.
I'm looking now. Hold on.
If you remember the
22
lore in Oblivion, essentially Sithis impregnates the Night Mother. The Night Mother has a bunch of sons, and she murders them all, and then they carry on.
Right.
Kind of.
Okay, so Vivec murders all of his kids.
Yeah, but there's also you actually meet a Night Mother. So.
Well, you meet a corpse that is talking. No, wait, no, you meet the
ghost in Oblivion, and then in
Oblivion you meet the ghost. Right, but you never meet the Night Mother when it's alive. I'm perfectly willing to say that Vivec is just speaking through like a spirit or a ghost or the corpse or something like that. That's perfectly.
Personally, I think it's Mephala.
Like that which could work.
Mm-hmm.
Although the reason that Vivec could be the Night Mother like so convincingly is because he is so similar to Mephala. So
yeah, he was trying to usurp her position.
Yeah,
that's why he made his own.
Didn't he already usurp her position by becoming the like Lord of the Morag Tong or whatever? Like
Vivec may have become usurped Mephala temporarily while Z was still a god. But as the power of the heart of Lorkhan seeped away from Vivec, you could argue that the power shifted back to Mephala. It's possible that Vivec might well have been the leader or the soul of the Morag Tong or of the Dark Brotherhood for a length of time and isn't anymore, and now it's Mephala again. But
I just feel like
Vivec took when Vivec took the mantle of Mephala and the Morag Tong, Mephala needed new lunar currency. So she decided that the Night Mother's corpse was a nice way to make that happen.
Yeah, sure. That could work. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fair. I like it.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Vivec and the Morag Tong over Vivec being in the Dark Brotherhood. Either because I like that more, or I just like being a subversive asshole.
I thought the theory was that he was part of both.
Yeah, it's just the way I see it is that Vivec established the Dark Brotherhood to do the Morag Tong stuff, but be loyal to him, and then he discovered Kime and abandoned them because he didn't need them anymore. That's just that's just.
No, well, it depends on where you envision Vivec getting Chim. It's either, I mean, is it in Sermon 14, as we all know was when he first heard about it, or
whenever
when he first heard the word for it.
Right. Yeah. Or was it in 36 when Almsevi finally forms together to form the giant Voltron robot to fight Animitium? Or there's a lot of places in the 36 lessons that you can argue. Like, I mean, I would say that probably spiritually speaking, it should have to happen after he kills his last son, but that doesn't happen until he kills Nerevar.
Yeah, it's very unclear when he was meant to have achieved Kim.
Well, the way I look at it,
Sermon 4's thing is not like you don't have to be a ruling king. Yeah, exactly. A ruling king doesn't have to have Chim. It's that like a ruling king doesn't even have to complete a walking way. It just means that you're a person of power.
I'm just saying though, when he discovered Kime, he abandoned them. Because I look at time in the Elder Scrolls series as a bunch of little strands of string twisted together, and a bunch, linearity in the Elder Scrolls series
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Especially when you have
terrible being linear.
So did it happen in Sermon 36 or did it happen in the other sermon? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you got the Dwemer and Vivec, Numidium, all that involved sort of in this, so it's a bit confusing. Confused, sorry, not confusing. It's by the nature of it that it's a mess.
Yeah. Anyway, back to
move away from like the
Sithis.
Dark Brotherhood and all that. Yeah, I have a thing here of like kind of, since we've been talking about Sithis kind of as the Death God, Dark Brotherhood interpretation. I'm thinking, I'm looking at a line from the monomyth now. Sithis is the corrupting, inexpressible action, and now there's that whole spiel about how he's basically the original creator is the word used here, because his action against Anuiel's kind of stasis is what causes the Grey Maybe to start. And I feel like we could probably kind of work with that more as kind of the opposite to the death thing from a second ago.
It's always been my assumption that that Lorkhan was the entity that came up with the idea of the Grey Maybe. It's entirely possible you could suggest that Sithis is
existence. Yeah, wrong word.
Well, yeah, it's just more fitting that Lorkhan did it along with Sithis.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Well, Sithis as the original creator is like he started the impetus for the whole thing, and Lorkhan made the actual thing itself.
Okay.
Yeah, because Sithis as change. Well, because before that there was really nothing, and so change of nothing is something.
Yeah.
And then once there is something, Sithis now being this death god is the opposite of this something, which is life, and then trying to take that away.
So he's not action so much as reaction.
Yeah, yeah.
A little, yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
This is nothing. I
So
don't know if this is nothing.
Yeah, well, you can't have a pure nothing anymore after you get past Anu and Padme. So yeah, of course it's not nothing.
So it seems like Sithis is more some sort of contrarianism in...
I have an idea of what it might be. I mean, you look at Ambiel and his stasis. You look at Sithis, and he's supposed to be change, which means that he's split stasis. He's, well, as we call him, math. That's why we call him math, because he split stasis. He makes stasis into other things. He makes this whole pure object into things that are different from one another. He removes. That's why he's not. He removes the other descriptive elements of objects, I guess. I don't know
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say exactly. I've had this idea in my head for a while, but I can't really put it into words very well. You know, like NWL is all possible now. His mother, your father, he's all objects and everything. But that's why he is. He's everything. And then when you say Sithis is not, you're saying that Sithis removes that everything, all those possibilities, and basically collapses it into one point.
Luther, have you read Carl Jung's Seven Sermons to the Dead?
I have not.
Okay, pick that up and read it, because it's Carl Jung talks a lot about in Sermon 1 actually about the pleroma, which is the nothingness or fullness we name pleroma. Therein both thinking and being cease, since the eternal and infinite possess no qualities. In it no being is, for he then would be distinct from the pleroma and would possess qualities which would distinguish him as something distinct.
Oh, okay.
I think that's where you're headed with that.
I got this idea when reading the Upanishads, actually. So the Upanishads talks a lot about this, too. It's just a mysticism sort of thing. I didn't know that Carl Jung was a mystic. That's interesting.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Audience, you check it out as well.
Yeah, he wasn't always, but yeah. And thanks for the link. I'll try to remember to link that in the description of this YouTube video.
It was the first thing I banged, I'll be honest. It's just Carl Jung Seven Sermons shows up.
It's really relevant to a lot of 36 lessons metaphysics and so on, because it's really relevant to a lot of Western metaphysics. I mean, you can't really. I mean, it hits on all the big beats, you know. Oh, and guess whose iPad crashed again? Okay, so let's talk about the connection between Sithis and Sheogorath.
Well, it's said Sheogorath is the Sithis true toll when Lorkhan's heart was removed.
Shit to say about this.
So, you know, there's been a lot of talk, especially with the Shivering Isles expansion for Oblivion. You know, with this type of madness involved with maybe Patamaic ideology, which makes sense if you kind of take into account the entropy aspect of Sithis, and what's more chaotic than a crazy person?
Free will. That's my spiel, because I'm going to start now. So my thing, and I'm going to use sort of this little note that got left here in the chat, and along with some stuff from the monomyth. So you've got Sithis being the sum of all limitations Anuia would utilize to ponder himself. So let's start with that, with limitation and a certain of actions to take, or a finite mortal mind, or whatever. And okay, I'm also trying to track the chat at the same time, and been drinking. So skipping ahead a bit, so you have Jygallag, who is order, and you notice that Daius, when you talk to Daius in Shivering Isles, he's very determinist and very, like, kind of, you know, everything can be mathematically calculated, etc., etc. So when you bring in Sheogorath, who is madness, the madness also sort of translates into the antithesis of the determinism, which is free will. But you can't have free will without limits, because then there's no decision to be made if you have no limits. So therefore, Sithis is necessary, which was made in Sheogorath and Lorkhan, because, in my opinion, the creation of the mortal world was there to allow for the limits that are needed for free will.
Yeah,
and that's kind of
that makes sense. It's always been my assumption that that the Anuic forces are the limiting factors in any in any combination.
Well, I don't know, because I'm
So-
looking here for the line, first off, with Sithis as the sum of all limitations, and one of these Lorkhan a nature, so he could never last long anywhere. I'm sort of just taking that more of just like, with these limitations, you have both the responsibility and the ability to make the decisions yourself. And then Jygallag, you don't. It's all mathematically calculable, and it just happens.
And there's
and
no
you don't
choice at
actually
all.
have a say in it. Yeah.
Right.
So
That makes-
basically, what I'm saying, that's the relationship. Free will is the relationship, in my opinion, between Sheogorath, Lorkhan, Jygallag, and Sithis. And it's these four things sort of working together. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that worked. I like it.
So
See, again, tracking the chat. I'm reducing
Wake
the
up,
number of
Australia.
tracks in my brain.
just stream of consciousness, it, bro. Don't
Yeah.
get into all the time.
Let's see. Yeah, we were just in chat. We were also trying to track the idea of linking Sithis to the hunger that drives.
The Tseisky.
Yeah, and also generally speaking, the Kelpic cycle.
Well, I'm thinking more like Sakatol.
I always
Yeah,
thought the hunger just hung out in the
Like as soon
period.
as I see hunger, I immediately think Sakatol. And like where, because isn't Sakatol supposed to be both Anu and Padme at the same time? So
Yeah,
it's sort of
Sakatol is the
messes with the whole system.
self, and he's driven by hunger. I don't know if he actually is the hunger.
yeah, I don't know either.
Akel
It's-
Akel is hunger.
I have the other thing open.
Yeah.
Akel's hunger. Satek
So I'll
is
find-
the opposite of that, and then Satek Akel is both of them.
Right.
Yeah. So which one corresponds? The hunger is the one that forces the action, and if Sithis is the inexpressible corrupting action, then I would think it's the hunger. But I feel like that's too easy.
Yeah, you're right. It might be a little too easy. So,
Just
so
because
to draw. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that was it.
Okay, so to draw a line between Sithis as a Padamic entity and Sheogorath is pretty easy. But if Sheogorath was created after Lorkhan's death, what kind of parallels can we draw between Sheogorath and Lorkhan?
Well, Lorkhan is the representation of the limit, so he's the limiting factor. He creates limit, he creates mortality, he creates everything. Sheogorath is the Sithis shaped full of limit, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so is he opposite or is he... Yeah.
Well, Sheogorath's existence also kind of serves to not only impose limits because of mental afflictions and all that, but if we go with the fact that he's supposed to be attributed to the creation of mortal music and all that, he is the transcendence of these limits as well, because you can't break a rule if you don't know that it exists. Like, that's pretty much the first thing we've ever been taught in my college courses is we're going to teach you these rules of various sciences and whatever, and then we're going to break them, but you can't do that until you know what the rule is. So like with Sheogorath, it doesn't make any sense for insanity to exist in an environment where there are no known rules. So Sheogorath has to both provide the rules and then break them in order for him to exist as he is. And
Well
whereas,
done.
like Jygallag didn't know what the rules were, and he didn't break them. He just wanted everything to stay put because he couldn't break any rules if he didn't know they existed, and then it just nothing moved. And that's what that transformation was. Yes, he wanted to create rules, but he never could create good ones, I think. He just kept trying to enforce it, and it all went to hell, and that's why they made him into Sheogorath.
That I would totally buy, yeah. Yeah.
Basically, don't.
I'm losing Joe. Is anybody else losing
And,
Joe?
Yeah,
Big
I can't
numbers?
quite
Yeah.
hear that.
Hold on. Heyo, if you can hear the words mathematically calculable universe, you can get it.
Yep.
That doesn't
Okay.
exist once Lorkhan creates the gray maybe, because then everything is maybe.
I don't think
Right.
I'm confused on my
Right.
monomyth.
So,
I don't think he created the Grey, maybe. I thought he was born
Well,
of it.
okay, I might be
just when they
missing.
collided.
I'm missing. I might be missing terms, or I might be skipping things in my head. When Lorkhan made Nirn and Tamriel and that,
Mundus, yeah.
there was free will to be had and decisions to be made. Therefore, the universe wasn't mathematically calculable. So Jygallag just couldn't work. He was no longer a functioning god because he was wrong. So he became Sheogorath, and sort of the most radical change in divinity in order to fit and to maintain relevance in a world that had changed was Jygallag into Sheogorath. When there was no free will into there is free will.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Just that, that's a good point. Just how does that tie in to the main myth that we're told? That is, the Daedric princes ganged up on him and forced Jygallag into being Sheogorath.
Because I really can't find a mythic reason for that to be true. Like, I can't find a way that fits into everything else.
Well,
I know that he says it right up, but I can't really fit that with the rest of the world as I see it. So I'm trying to.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, if
Jygallag was
it could make sense.
He was the strongest spirit.
If it wasn't the Daedric
if it weren't for that one
princes,
fucking line.
But no, if it wasn't the Daedric, but maybe instead the Aedric, then it could work because the Aedra are what made Mundus, and therefore I guess Jygallag going insane into Sheogorath, maybe.
Well, it might be that when Mundus was created, that had effects on all of Orbis. Like, before creation, Orbis was just a solid gradient, if you will. And then when it was created, Aetherius went full on white, Oblivion went full on black, more or less, and Mundus went colorful. And I would possibly Jygallag resisted this and wanted everything to go back to being just grays, and the Magna Gay were not in a really position to do anything about that because they left, and the other Daedric princes, Jygallag was threatening their realms and their ability to have their self-contained worlds by insisting that everything go back to homogeneity and the gradient, and that would be why we had the line about them attacking him and forcing him to accept the new reality that he was unwilling to do so prior to that.
Funny that you bring up the color remark, because I've just looked up, because it's been a while since I played Shivering Isles, I just looked up Jygallag, and he is nothing but grey. His entire character model is grey, and his crystal boots are grey. That's...
Obelisk grey. I finished it a couple weeks ago. I'm just replaying the whole series, and it's just all the time. So it's like kind of the pre-world. Just kind of the pre-world stuff. Yeah, there you go. I don't know if this is on screen, but yeah.
I assume it's showing up whenever I talk, but I'm just looking for images of Jygallag, and there's no color in him. So yes, my rats about Orbis color were right.
You go to
Is that him? I think.
I don't know. I always viewed him kind of as order, but
yeah. I like that theory. Still needs some.
Can we get
I'm talking. So yeah, that theory about Jygallag and Sheogorath, and like that theory, my general opinion on it is that Jygallag kind of can't exist in the world as it is because it's not just like deterministic and numerical. It's chaotic. It's weird. It's fucking Teslor, man.
Yeah, maybe they tried to keep it to exist, and they've had to break him out of that. But otherwise, Jygallag.
You guys remember Jygalag's great library that had everything that could ever happen?
That was a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's wrong because Gaius actually says that. Well, you weren't supposed to actually do that, and you did it anyway. So, fuck him right off.
Essentially, I view Sheogorath as a personification of free will, almost to the point.
Same here.
because he enables people to literally make their own realities within their heads. That's what.
Yeah,
madness
he's just the
is.
furthest extreme of free will.
He's furthest extreme, and Jygallag is the calculable unfree will, where he's fate. He's essentially fate.
Mm-hmm.
He's determinism, or maybe more as fate.
I think
It's
his,
a very hair-splitty semantic difference.
yeah, didn't his library contain every possible outcome based on certain numerical values or something?
Something like that.
Really?
That's what they said.
Library.
Yeah, that's what Dias claims.
And he was wrong because it didn't contain you.
Maybe that's significant, though. The hero as an unsure spot.
Yeah, it's the hero's the letter written in uncertainty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh well, we're bringing that one in.
And uncertainty. Well, no. From all this description, Sithis is more contrary than uncertain.
There's something in the chat. Drunk podcasting is hard, guys.
Yeah, it is.
We should talk about how far. We should talk about how far gone.
It's gonna be the best one ever.
That's what we should do for the True STL cast. We should talk about we should have a Fargoth cast.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want it.
I am down.
I was thinking, myself.
Yeah. The Electric Prince of Minor Inconveniences, but
I'm trying very hard to get my brain back in track of the minutes.
I've always been slightly confused. Go back to Sheogorath a bit. The term Sithis-shaped hole. How do you have nothing shaped itself like nothing?
Well,
A hole is nothing.
something I was just thinking
A
about.
hole is nothing.
Stasis asks only for itself, which is nothing.
A hole isn't nothing. A hole is just an absence of matter, but holes still exist in and of themselves.
But it's a hole in reality, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
all of reality. Yeah.
Sheogorath isn't.
Again,
So how do you
we don't have to
something-
deal in absolutes. It could just be a metaphor.
you think?
Yeah.
Hey, it's still
way.
worthy to get meaning out of it, to get some meaning out of a metaphor. It seems like maybe it's just an epithet, but epithets usually have meaning too.
Well, if I had to guess, I'd say it's not that Sheogorath is just an absence or an emptiness as far as what a hole could mean, but like a conduit, like Magnus is a hole through which light flows, or a sink, a repository into which all things flow of their own accord. So like change flows towards him and back from him, I guess, depending on how you look at the hole and where it's positioned.
I always took it as Sheogorath being the passage or the conduit through which that Sithisian chaos flows into the Arbus.
Yeah, but like the sun is a magnet-shaped hole in the world. Like that's literally what it is. So it's not, I'm not saying that's all Sheogorath is, obviously, because he's outside the world and his own entity and all that, whereas the sun's just a scar tissue. But it's certainly one of the things it can be.
Well, I tend to go with the limitations thing more, where the Sithis-shaped hole, again, the limitations that are required for you to have to make decisions.
I was thinking about just a couple minutes ago in regards to Sheogorath and the Sithis-shaped hole. There's this idea, Adada Adra Eat the Dreamer, which kind of details Akatosh's madness and the root of that madness. And I was kind of thinking in my head, the whole, to sum it up in a couple words, it's this definition of Akatosh representing I am and Lorkhan representing I am not, and the maddening, trying to make sense of that is utterly maddening. And I was thinking that perhaps that madness sprouts with Lorkhan's death, his sundering, which would be a Sithis-shaped hole in his heart, and the madness of having a part of yourself dying, as Akatosh and Lorkhan are connected to the same umbilical cord.
The same twins are the orbrilical. That's a
umbilical cord. Nice.
Orbrilical.
Having a part of you die, literally, not it just being metaphorical anymore. One literally being I am, and one literally being I am not. They are dead, and trying to reconcile that. And I think that's where Sheogorath might come in as that Sithis-shaped hole that Akatosh feels in his heart.
Yeah, and Akatosh's insanity is self-contained. Except for Dragon Breaks, nobody else ever experiences that. Whereas with Sheogorath, everyone experiences his insanity because he's a hole in the world that Akatosh doesn't have.
Dagoth experienced Lorkhan's insanity pretty good.
Lorkhan's, yes. Akatosh's, I don't think, not so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, Pelinal. Yeah. Remember
Pelinal.
Yeah.
Pelinal. Yes. Good. That's true. Anyway, always I agree entirely with Franzen. So yeah.
It's kind of ironic how a lot of the robots seem to be so patamaic, despite robots usually be considered something very ordered normally.
Well, the problem is that Anu and Padme, when you stand back and look at Anu and Padme, they're practically identical. I mean, it's
isn't that the whole point?
The dichotomy. Yeah, exactly. That's just the way shit is.
They're one unit. Without the other one, the other is pointless.
Cannot exist.
Yeah, it's the same with frickin' Talos and the Underking and all that stuff, and Anu, Padme, Akatosh, Lorkhan. Without the other one, it's just a pointless individual that has no purpose.
And Flippers crashed.
Yep.
Again. That's like the fourth time.
It's those toilets flushing in the wrong direction, I'm telling you. It's a fucking conspiracy.
Something about iPads, man. I don't know. They don't seem to like this thing very much. And he's back!
Someday we gotta
fix your toilet, Flippers.
It's because he keeps dropping
bad
it.
Omen.
He's falling over so many times.
That's a bad omen.
Yeah,
just real quick before we completely dissolve into talking about whatever the hell's on the top of our heads, does anybody have anything else they want to mention about Sithis?
Have a check my notes again.
Cody, this is your cue.
I was going to say.
I think we went over math, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe now's a good time to bring up, or at least someone, hint Deadite, talk about how one of Sithis' names is, which is PSJJJJ, and how we have the Psijic order, the Psijic path, I think, and that whole deal.
Well, okay, the Psijic order is not the same thing as Psij, PSSJJJJ.
Not entirely.
It's supposed to be the sizzling note of the first sound of the creation of the universe.
I thought it was just a representation of the unpronounceable.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be unpronounceable, but the first sound of the universe is supposed to be unpronounceable. But the best approximation is the word "sizz." If you can imagine, it's sort of like a sizzling, like staticky noise. It's sort of like Buddhists have the Om kind of sound of the or Hindu. I don't know, one of them.
When I lived in a Buddhist temple, it wasn't ever said there. So.
Yeah. So it's but the Psijic order are, as far as I understand, the reason why they're called the Psijic order was because some writers at Bethesda basically wanted to make sure that nobody tried to cram the D&D psychic equivalent in, and so they just sort of grabbed that name really fast as soon as possible to seal off all the AD&D references.
Then there's the Psijic Endeavor, which is an unrelated concept. With
right.
The same name.
Have the Psijic Order ever actually attempted the Endeavor? I've never been clear on that.
It seems to me like they could, but I don't know if they will, and also I'm not entirely certain what the Psijic Endeavor is yet, but I can tell you that it's different from the promise of the Psij, which is a whole other thing. The promise of the Psij is the evolution of a being from an egg into a god, which is what Vivec does supposedly in the 36 lessons.
There was a mention of Sophus Hill teaching Psijics in 2920, but that's in universe fiction, so it's not really.
That's distinctly possible, just because he fucked himself.
True. Well, there are a couple of other collaborating sources that say that Sothasil is a Psijic mage.
Yeah.
which fits just fine for Sothisil. I sort of assumed he was one of those guys who goes around collecting certifications, like he's MCSE and he's CISSP and all this other kind of crap, I mean, he's just got plaques on his wall, and yeah. But the fact that Sothisil teaches Psijic monks doesn't necessarily it could make him a Psijic monk. He could make him a Psijic mage, but that doesn't necessarily limit him entirely to the realm of alteration, which is what the Psijic mages deal with primarily. And thematically, the fact that they deal with entirely with alteration it works really well too, because that's kind of what what
Sithis does. He alters.
Yeah, but it's because the Psijic Order admits that they have an interest in the Padmeic forces of the universe. That's kind of that's Padme's thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just a thing that you should really have to bring up, because even though they're very close to the Somerset Isles, they are very, very, very not similar to their culture or their views, which is very Anu, pro-Anu at least. Whereas they're not quite along those lines.
Well, okay. Well, actually, shit. Anything else?
The Psijic Order invented mysticism, not.
Oh, is it mysticism and not alteration?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're right. You're right. It's mysticism. You're right. I got that wrong.
Well, mysticism got booted out in Skyrim, so.
Yeah.
No, still here.
Yeah.
Coming back.
That's because the Isle of Artaeum or whatever disappeared. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Wait, again?
Yeah, they do this a lot.
Yeah, they bugger off and do other things for a while. Personally, I think that the Psijic Order just spends all their time in a TARDIS, and they occasionally just disappear to other realms.
There is something there too. Actually, there's something there that could be touched on. I mean, we could go on about the Psijics on a whole podcast, but I mean,
probably, yeah.
I think with the rise of the Thalmor and the Aldmeri Dominion, it probably makes sense that they wanted to get out of Dodge.
Exactly.
From what I understand about the Psijic Order, they're not really into this whole Anuic, let's make the Mundus plan.
Yeah.
Just guessing.
They don't seem to care about that at all. But what would you say is the Psijic endeavor? Because I don't know. I've never figured that one out.
Amaranth.
Yeah, I think it's related to Amaranth, or it might be related to Chim. I can't remember. I remember doing a lot of reading and research into it and coming up with a really good conclusion, and then I didn't fucking write it down. So
then we drink too much, and you killed those brain cells.
Yeah.
Because I figured out what I sort of know what the Prologue's power is, but
I have no fucking clue.
Really? Well,
Absolutely.
we can talk about that.
Now my area of expertise, yeah. Can of worms that for a new one.
Yeah, that's all can of worms, the walking ways.
Yay.
Weaving defects. Okay. So, I'm going to say that we're done. This was a relatively short one. It was 45 minutes. I think we did pretty good. I think we did.
For a given value, good.
45 minutes of talking about nothing. That's
talking about
that's
damn
more.
it, you beat me to that joke. I was going to say that joke. You beat me to it.
Steinfeld did it for 9 years.
That's true. You didn't have to talk about Sithis.
Guys.
This is a different thing. Who has to talk about Sithis? All right. Anyway. All right.
Oh man.
These pretzels are making me thirsty. All right. So we'll be back again next month for sure. Everybody be good. Happy waitress. We'll be here all week.
Not
Bye-bye.
being good at all.